is that we've done a great job with outreach and communicating the air quality index. What's your color code for that today? Is it a code green day? Is it a code orange day? And the suggestion was maybe we do brown bag luncheons focusing on what the divisions have done well, and then each of the divisions could see what can we learn from this and take back to our own programs. A second one that came to mind as I sat around with a group of all these other people not from air quality is sharing some of our early thinking with other divisions and having a feedback on that would be helpful. Like it was very helpful to hear y'all are thought of as the mean agency. And I don't necessarily know that we totally want to change that, but really bouncing some of our ideas off of other environmental professionals I think would be helpful. And now to the fun one in terms of communication. And Keith, well, y'all may remember that as we started our air awareness program back in the late 90s, we had a mascot. Was the Air Avenger. Had a great costume. We've decided, Keith, we need a new face to kind of brand Air Quality's initiative, and you're going to be the new Air Avenger. Any questions? If he leaves me, yes, he does that 4 times. If he leaves me here, I may need a ride back to the train. Yes, sir. We talked about that, and in particular the need to partner, especially with local governments and local agencies, because if we have an ozone standard at 70 parts per billion or 65 parts per billion, the question is, where do we go for those emission reductions? And it's going to take local initiatives and what can be done at the local level that we as a state may not be able to go and say, you can't drive on odd days of the week or whatever.
So we do have those new lower more stringent standards that may work as in the second
Absolutely, and we heard that one thing from the discussion with Gina McCarthy is that she may be a little more open to an early action compact-like initiative. So we're very interested in trying to use that as a carrot for those communities that might be relatively close to the standard, and we may be able to attain the standard with those local initiatives. That's a good point. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. See, observation, I don't think Keith is going to be nearly as good as those spikes. I've been thinking about that ever since.
Do I hear a volunteer here? Volunteer for new Air Avenger?
I'll let you name and stuff on 27, 28 that I'll put forward.
Thank you, Edith.
You're going to be very,
See how we partner together, buddy?
you're going to be very popular if you start putting out names.
Thanks for the first comment. Thanks for getting me out of it.
Let's hear from the X group over here.
X Factor.
Hello, I'm Bill Gilmore. I'm with Ecosystem Enhancement. How many of you know what Ecosystem Enhancement does? Oh, it's better than I expected. Okay. Here's the issue that we came up on. Of course, ours is sustaining water for the future. Coming up, I was riding with Edith and Bob Midget. I learned more about water supply in the 30 minutes or 45 minutes or so we were talking on the subject on the way up here. I learned more about water supply in that length of time than I have known about water supply in the last 6 years at DENR. This is not a reflection on DENR, but we're all very busy doing things specific to our task, and we're not having adequate time to educate ourselves on how we can synergize and improve these goals, particularly with water quality in the areas I work with. So in the goals, there were integrate water quality, water data through better coordination between the divisions. I want to touch on that. Protect the state's water resources develop a statewide water resource policy, improve the state's response to groundwater contamination, and continue the department's work on reducing pollution. The thing that came down with us was this concept of education. How do we better focus on the Secretary's goal number one and do a better job of putting our programs focused in a targeted area where we all come out where the sum of the individual parts is greater than the individual contribution of each division. So what we were thinking of is two types of reactions. One is how do we increase awareness amongst ourselves at DENR, and how do we increase awareness to the public, the people we serve. And the recommendations that came out of it were, first of all, internal education. I want to focus on that one in particular. And that would be to possibly pull together meetings different from the Secretary's leadership meetings that are held every 2 months, and maybe have quarterly meetings or a meeting every 4 months with just the folks, and I don't mean to exclude air quality, because some of the work we work with does do air quality, but in terms of water quality, that we would bring together things like soil and water, ecosystem enhancement, division of water quality, coastal management, fisheries, together as a group to sit there and listen a little bit. Listen to what the others are doing in a concise manner. What is your division doing? What are the problem areas you're working on? What is your individual strategic plan so that you can understand what they're focusing on to see if anything that you're doing is targeted in that same direction, and then find those opportunities to knit those together so we come across as a comprehensive program. So we talked about quarterly meetings, we talked about focus groups, we talked about not just directors, we talked about at least at the beginning the directors and their direct reports. So now we're getting the ones that really do the work, the ones that aren't dealing with policy and putting out fires with the press and sales like Lou does all the time. We're actually sitting there and got the ones that are going to get the jobs done, to get them communicating and stitching those plans together. So we would also want to hold the directors and those groups accountable. We'd want them to report to the Secretary, Manley, David, Robin, all those folks in there on what progress they've made in the coordination meetings. And that's just the internal piece. The external, we didn't spend as much time, because at least I felt like personally there's so much internal need. But externally, we feel like we need to develop a report to the public, or at least to a focus group, and this might need to be rolled out in phases, but if we were just say, take the Jordan Reservoir, we know that everybody is working on that: water supply, division water quality, ecosystem enhancement. I'm sure I'm leaving out 3 or 4 others that are working in that reservoir to try and fix things. Have we ever provided kind of a comprehensive, targeted approach of all the things we're doing here? I think it would be a very big sell, very positive thing for DENR to do that. So it all boils back to education, the inward education of ourselves and the external education of the public. So that's what we stitched together in that very short time. So questions or anything? Is that good? Okay. Alan?
Well, you did good. One thing that I noticed in reading through this is that there wasn't a recognition, and I didn't see it anywhere on that page, that we have waters that are already impaired or polluted that need to be restored or enhanced. It was basically keeping things, maintaining them for the future, and managing and cleaning. I think if there was a phrase in here added that we maintain or protect and enhance water quality, that would address that. But I know in our program, that's a huge piece, is restoring impaired waters.
Yeah.
And that's a big impact on the regulated community, so it'd be good if that was reflected a little bit more clearly in here with just a couple words.
That's a good point, because when our program was originally set up, we were to meet no net loss, as you know. But ecosystem enhancement program was to be net gain. That was something that was never showcased in there. And I'm just wondering if the different contributions your division does with ours don't provide that actual net gain that we don't always pick up